As we're getting closer to August, it's time to do the midsummer grade for the Carolina Hurricanes to see how they're stacking up so far this offseason.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I am your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, along with my Chicago Wolves column called Wolves Weekly. I am also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun show for you guys on this Friday as we are now doing the midsummer offseason grade for the Carolina Hurricanes. So we're going to look at the additions that the team has brought in this year, along with the guys who have left for other teams during free agency. And then we're also going to do the overall grade at the very end, culminating everything that we've talked about in the other two segments and, seeing how the Hurricanes did so far this offseason. Of course, we still got a lot more to go, but this is kind of like the midsummer range of where we're at. Camp starts on Saturday in September. So we're going to see where we're at right now at the halfway point, if you want to look at it that way. But before we go into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Now, looking at the Carolina Hurricanes and the fact that we're going to look at the additions of the team. So we know where we're at right now with the fact that the Hurricanes did bring in William Carrier, Tyson Jost, Eric Robinson, Jack Roslovic, Shane Gostisbehere, and Sean Walker. But if you really want to add in the RFA additions as well, because technically they were re-signed, we can definitely count Jalen Chatfield and also Jack Drury. Jacob Slavin was an extension. He still had a year left, so he wouldn't really count as an addition. And yes, you could say the same thing for Jalen Chatfield and Jack Drury. They're not really additions. They're more also re-sign extensions. But for the sake of the argument of them coming back, per se, as a re-sign, we'll count them as additions as well, even though they weren't really with the roster last season. But if you want to look at how the team did, so we're going to go by the additions of, let's say, we're going to start with William Carrier. Overall, a great deal, 6 years, $2 million. He's 29 years old, plays, left wing. He will become an unrestricted free agent in 2030. Overall, not a really bad deal, all things considered. Yes, it's a little longer than what people thought it was going to be, but you got a bona fide fourth line guy, a really good analytical darling that a lot of people kind of, want to kind of shake their head at and stuff like that because, it's analytics. Like, what does that really mean? Well, he does have a Stanley Cup. He knows how to play a really good role in his – he knows how to play his role in the bottom six. And to get a guy like that as your Steph Nason replacement for $2 million isn't really bad, and you got him locked up for 6 years. Now, like I said on previous episodes, maybe by year 3 when he's 32, maybe year 4 when he's 33, maybe with a couple of years left at $2 million, maybe it's a contract they can move on to go get assets. So it's a good long-term long con, I guess, if you want to call it that, where it's like, yeah, you got a guy locked up for 6 years, but let's say year 3, year 4, maybe it's kind of not working out, and maybe they want to move on from someone and bring one of their young guys up. William Carey's contract wouldn't be too bad for a team to take on for 2 or 3 seasons at $2 million. So really good asset and cost control for the Hurricanes when it comes to William Carey's contract. Now, going to look at Tyson Jost. And Tyson Jost, 26 years old, he is the center, only signed a 1-year deal at $775,000. He will become an unrestricted free agent after this upcoming season. Good center depth, really knows how to, he has experience in the NHL and the AHL as well. Decent player, young, 26, nothing too bad. It's kind of like a prove-it deal, see what you can do, and maybe we'll get you in a contract extension. It's just What does that look like for him when you're talking about a team that already has centers of like Jack Drury, Jesper Kotkaniemi, Jack Roslovic's considered a center, Jordan Stahl, Sebastian Aho, and stuff like that. So what does that say about Tyson Jost, and how does that really play out for him? But overall, it's not a bad contract. You're under $800,000. Good depth piece if you really need him to come off the bench, and maybe some spot starts here and there and stuff like that. Of course, if injuries do happen, not going to one, nothing does happen, but it's good to have a backup and a guy that's been there and done that in the NHL and also in the AHL as well. Now, Eric Robinson, this one is also being a very interesting deal too with him, in the fact that his contract isn't really bad either, all things considered. I mean, another depth piece option for the Hurricanes, $950,000, kind of a little bit more than what Jost is getting, but 29 years old, another left wing. He is an unrestricted free agent after this upcoming season, and another guy who has experience in the NHL level and the AHL, Columbus Blue Jackets, also the Buffalo Sabres. So another possible depth guy if you need him on the Hurricanes team, really good person to use in the AHL to help Chicago Wolves. So that's kind of like, if Tyson Jost isn't, same thing for Jost. If he's not with the Hurricanes, he's going to be in Chicago helping the young guys out. Same thing for Eric Robinson, or they both can be up on the roster as well. It's just, how does that work out for Robinson when you got Brendan Lemieux as your 13th forward, if you want to look at it that way? And I don't know if one of those guys could play right wing. I know Brendan Lemieux could play both sides. I don't know about Eric Robinson. So maybe depending on how the roster shapes out, Robinson could be your 13th forward if Lemieux becomes an everyday guy, or could be a 14th forward and an extra scratch as well. It all just depends on what the Hurricanes want to do in terms of that aspect. But honestly, not a bad deal. $775 for Jost, $950 for Eric Robinson. Jack Roslovic. Now, this is a very, very interesting how this is going to play out for the Hurricanes, because before Don Waddell left for going to be the general manager and the president of hockey ops and the alternate governor, they said they needed a right shot center, and they got their guy in Jack Roslovic at $2.8 million a year. It's a 1-year deal. He will be a UFA after the season. Maybe a prove-it deal. I'm not really sure. And it seems like a lot of people aren't really on board with Jack Roslovic as the 2C. I know they said they wanted a right shot center. Maybe he's the fourth line center. Who really knows? And then maybe you have Kotkaniemi on the wing. Maybe does Jack Drury move up and stuff like that. So who really knows? It's very interesting to see how the Hurricanes are going to play that out. He does play wing as well, so there's a possibility that you can use him on the wing. Would be fourth line, would be second line. I guess it really depends on what Brind'amour them want to do, but it's another body that gives you versatility, and the fact that it's a guy who can play center, a guy who can play wing. If you need him on the PK as your center, you can do that. If you need him on the wing on even strength, you can do that as well. Possible power play too, if you really need an extra body there. That's a good logical move as well for the Hurricanes if they want to do that. But overall, it's a good prove-it deal. AAV is not terrible. Less than $3 million for 1 year for a guy who is only 27. Is, like I said, it's that right shot center that they wanted, because almost all their centers are left shots. Now, going into the defense, I really, really like the additions of Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker. So we are going to do Shane Gostisbehere first, where he is on a 3-year deal. And it's $3.2 million per year, and he will become a UFA after the 26-27 season. And I know for the 24-25 season, he's got a 15-team no-trade list, along with 25-26 as well. And that goes into a 10-team no-trade list for 2026-27. 31 years old, shoots left. He could play both sides of the defense. I know when the last time he was with the Hurricanes, he played on the third pair with Jalen Shaffield on the left side. Really instant boost to the power play at the time as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to the power play once again. Will it be PP1 or PP2? It all really depends. But if you look at Shane Gostisbehere, 31 years old, we know what he can already do. $3.2 million isn't a bad deal. He had 4.1 with the Red Wings last season. Comes back to Carolina for a second run. the Hurricanes were the first team to reach out to him for free agency, and it was honestly a great deal, all things considered. 3.2, great. It's a good amount for the AAV. 3 years. They'll put him about 34. Maybe you reassess from there if you want to give him another contract and keep him in Carolina longer, or you kind of get ready for Scott Moore and all those guys, because Shane Gostisbehere contract also runs into Jalen Chatfield's as well. Well, they're both 3 years, right around 3.2 and then $3 million. So all in all, I love the Shane Gostisbehere pickup. Really glad to see Ghostberry's back with the Hurricanes. Sean Walker's contract, 29 years old. He's a right shot defenseman, does play both sides of the ice as well. Most of the time in Colorado and in Philly, he did play on the right side. 3.6 over 4 years. He'll become a UFA after the 27-28 season. Honestly, another great deal, a contract that works out very, very well he's a UFA after the 28-29 season, because it's a 5-year deal, actually. Sorry. So it's a 5-year deal. But it's really good for the fact that he's a UFA after the 28-29 season, and by that point, he's going to be 34. So it's another one of those contracts where it kind of works out perfectly for the Hurricanes in that you know what you're getting out of Sean Walker. He's really, really good, a very underrated defenseman in my opinion. And for the fact you get him under $4 million, and if you look at the fact that it's a Sean Walker 3.6, Ghost 3.2, and a Jalen Chatfield $3 million, you're talking $9.8 million between those three guys. Now, when we do talk about Brett Pesce and Brady Shea in the departures part of the show, you're talking about three guys who got under $10 million for the Hurricanes, and Shea and Pesce got 12.5 combined. So all in all, that's a really good asset management in terms of you gave yourself the cap space necessary to go take care of other guys as well. And I think just being able to have you locked up your Brett Pesce replacement in Sean Walker and your Brady Shea replacement in Shane Gostisbehere, and you bring back Jalen Chatfield for 3 seasons when his contract has got no movement clauses in the first 2 years, and it turns into a 15-team no trade. That's really good movement by the Hurricanes to go make that work out as well. We just talked about the Sean Walker deal. Like I said, really, really like that. Jalen Chatfield was the other, re-signed addition, $3 million. You know what you get out of him. 28 years old. He's going to be 31 by the time the contract's done after 26, 27. Really good, underrated player, really fast, guy's good shot. Great guy to keep on the team as well. And it works out to the Shane Gostisbehere contract for being 3 years. And you kind of have your guys in Slavin, Walker, Gostisbehere, and Chatfield all locked up for at least for the next 3 seasons, just with those 4 guys. And then, Walker becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2029 in that summer. And then Jacob Slavin, with his new contract extension, he will become a UFA until 2033. So all in all, really love those deals. And then the last kind of re-sign that we've seen so far from the Hurricanes, and that is Jack Drury. $1.725 million over the next 2 seasons. He will become a restricted free agent after the 25-26 season. Then he'll become an unrestricted free agent after 26-27. So he does have 1 more year of restricted free agent, in which will be a arbitration eligible at that point too. 24 years old. You know what you get out of him. I think it's another great prove-it deal, and I think someone that the Hurricanes could really rely on in the future. I think someone who could see an uptick in his time on ice with Evgeny Kuznetsov leaving, which we'll talk about more in the next segment. But if you're looking at Jack Drury, I think this is the year you kind of give him a chance. And I've said it on the other episode when they re-signed him for Thursday show, is that he's everywhere he's gone, he's proven that he can put up points. If he's given the ice time, he has the capability to show what he can do. And I think this might be the season where you might see a Jack Drury get his time bumped up, and where he could get his points going up as well. So overall, really great deal, under $2 million. You got a young guy locked up for 2 more years. He'll be 26 by the time that deal is done, and he'll be arbitration eligible for RFA 1 more time before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So all in all, I really like these additions for the Hurricanes in terms of, guys they've picked up and stuff like that. If you want to throw in Ryan Suzuki real quick as an earlier move this offseason for his re-sign as well. Really, really good. $775,000. Can't be upset about that. He'll become a restricted free agent after this upcoming season. Josiah Slavin, $775,000 over the next 2 seasons. Plays center and left wing, 25 years old. Jacob Slavin's brother, depth piece more than anything else. He's probably going to be playing in Chicago. Same thing for Riley Stillman, another guy for the Hurricanes, where he's going to be probably playing in Chicago for the most part. We could probably see him move up somewhere as well, so we'll see how that works out. $775,000. 26 years old. He's an unrestricted free agent after this season. Same thing for Joakim Ryan. He comes back from the SHL, 31 years old, $775,000 as well. Most likely to be playing in Chicago, unrestricted free agent. Those 2 moves aren't bad in terms of shoring up your defense as well. And then just Ty Smith, he is staying in Carolina. Same number as Stillman and Ryan. He is 24 years old. And honestly, I would not be surprised if he's the Hurricanes' 7th defenseman this upcoming season. So those are all the additions. I know there's we did a lot of the notables, and of course we went over all the other depth pickups and some of the re-signs that happened earlier in the summer and stuff like that. But overall, I think I really like the addition. So in the comments on the YouTube side of things, let me know in the comments, what do you think of the additions for the Hurricanes? Do you like the Carrier deal, maybe the Jost, or is it Gostisbehere? Is it Walker? What do you think of the re-signs in Drury and Chatfield and Ty Smith and all that? So let me know about the additions for the Hurricanes. What new faces or returning guys that you like that the Hurricanes did this summer? Now, we did the arrival. We got the additions. Now we got to talk about the departures and all the guys that unfortunately did leave this year that a lot of fans liked. So we'll get to that here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether they're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to a segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 1, we are now going to talk about the departures of the Carolina Hurricanes and the guys who did leave for other teams. Jake Gensel, one of the first ones that we're going to talk about. We did it a while back. This is right around the draft time. And what a saga that was, with the fact that, I guess Tuesday, Wednesday, Jake Gensel's camp came back as a counter offer to the Hurricanes' initial 7x7.75. They won an 8x8. Thursday morning, the Hurricanes said they would match it. By Saturday, apparently Jake Gensel's camp said, we're going to go to free agency. So the Hurricanes asset management decided, okay, we'll just trade your rights to the Tampa Bay Lightning and at least get a draft pick out of it. So they got a 3rd rounder for 2025. He goes to the Tampa Bay Lightning for $7x9 million. And that thing is so buyout proof for the fact that almost his entire contract is signing bonuses. Like, his base salary for 1 year is like a little above $3 million. Everything else is $1 million in terms of actual is what his base salary is. Everything else is signing a bonus. So one huge departure, unfortunately, for the Hurricanes. They didn't really want to lose him, but apparently he didn't really want to stay in Carolina. He wanted to go to Florida and play for the Tampa Bay Lightning for 1 year less than $1 million more and all that. So it is what it is with that. The most recent departure was Evgeny Kuznetsov. I know earlier this week we talked about, is he staying? Is he going? It sounded like that he was going to leave, but then his agent said, pump the brakes. We don't know if that's just going to happen because he still technically has a contract with the Hurricanes. But in the end, he's not staying in Carolina. The Hurricanes did place him on conditional waivers to mutually terminate his contract, freeing up $3.9 million for the Hurricanes. And with that, now the team actually will be sitting at $13.856 million, freeing up that contract that Evgeny Kuznetsov has. Now we don't know for sure where he's going, but he's no longer a Hurricane. He's an unrestricted free agent. All things considered for that. Steph Nason unfortunately does go to the New Jersey Devils. He got the extra money that he wanted. Same thing with Brett Pesce. Brett Pesce left for the Devils as well for $5.5 million. So, you're gonna miss those guys, but it stings to see they're gonna stay in the division. And it's gonna be interesting to see how the Hurricanes are gonna play Nason and Brett Pesce for at least the next couple seasons. Teuvo Teravainen does go back to the Chicago Blackhawks for $3 million for 3 years at $5.4 million. So didn't lose any money in terms of his AAV. He's just going back to the team that he got drafted by and won a Stanley Cup with. So got to wish Teuvo nothing but the best. Stinks to see him leave, but he wanted to go back to Chicago and he kept the same amount of money that he wanted. Dylan Coghlan was traded away, so he was part of a trade, no longer with the Hurricanes as well. Just kind of makes sense to try to go for, what they can do best with what their next potential top seventh defenseman is going to be, which I do think is Ty Smith. Tony DeAngelo, we don't really know exactly what's going on with that. I don't think he's been signed to any team right now. It's just kind of one of those things where he is in limbo, all things considered. So we're not really sure what's going on with that. But it is most likely that he's not going to come back to the Hurricanes. So it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where, it's just Tony DeAngelo is just not going to be with the team anymore, and who really knows what's going to happen with his future. But as of right now, no contract, just a UFA right now in the sphere. Last guy we're going to talk about in terms of subtractions or the departure, and that's Brady Shea going to the Nashville Predators, who loaded up with Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. He's going to the Predators for 7x7. Same thing with the Vincent Trocheck deal. I just don't think the Hurricanes wanted to give, another guy like that 7x7. Now, guess you could say Jacob Slavin's contract of his 6, the fact that his 8x6.4 is like, okay, you gave Jacob Slavin all that term, but the AAV is less, but what you get out of Jacob Slavin. He is one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. Arguably, you could say top 2. I would say he's the best defensive defenseman in the entire NHL. So that's why you give a guy like him a contract, who's going to be basically retiring as a Hurricane. He's going to be a Hurricane for life, and whose number is going to be in the rafters when all things is said and done. But Brady Shea goes to the Preds. Nothing you can really do about that. 7x7, you wish him nothing but the best. But so you got Shea, Pesce, DeAngelo. DeAngelo's technically gone because he's a UFA, still hasn't been signed yet. Dylan Coughlin's rights got traded. Teuvo Teravainen going back to Chicago. Steph Nason and goes back to New Jersey with Brett. He's going back because he played with New Jersey before. He's going there with Brett Pesce. They get to team up with Dougie Hamilton. Evgeny Kuznetsov, like I said, unfortunately gone. Mutual agreement to terminate his contract, and then Jake Gensel traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who did sign with them. So let me know what you think in the comments if you're on the YouTube side of things. Let me know what you think of the guys who left, which departure kind of hurts the most, and which one's kind of more surprising to you, and who do you wish the Hurricanes were able to keep. So let me know in the comments what you think about all of that. So those were the additions, those were the subtractions, how you want to look at the roster so far. I know there's still going to be a lot more going on because Seth Jarvis is still an RFA. They're still trying to figure out a contract for him. Same thing with Martin Necas. And I've had this conversation with a few people on social media. It's like, I don't think the Hurricanes are done. I still think there's a lot more that they need to figure out, because I don't think this is the roster they're going to run with into 24, 25. Like, you kind of knew there was going to be a little bit of a reset on the roster. I just don't think it was a reset that the Hurricanes necessarily thought it was going to happen. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens, for the rest of the offseason. But before we get into all the what's going to happen next, we do have to talk about the overall grade that I think the Hurricanes have done so far as of July 19th in the midsummer grading process of this offseason for the Hurricanes. So we'll talk about that, and I'll give them my grade here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The one things I really like about the app itself is the fact they're really great on their last-minute ticket deals. Their flash and zone deals are amazing as well. And their viewfinder, so where you can see what seats you're going to be going to at the actual venue, is a really, really good game changer as well. Now, talk about their last-minute deals. You can actually save up to 60% off when buying last-minute tickets for sports, along with concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. So it's not just sports. Even everyday hobby stuff that you like, you can get last-minute deals through Gametime as well. With their flash deals, you can save more with an exclusive in-app deal on select seats at the head of the game or the event. And with their zone deals, this is a really cool feature where you get to choose the section and you save more that way, but you let the Gametime app choose the seat for you. And talking about seats, their panoramic view seat feature, you can actually see what you're going to be sitting in before you get to the event itself and before you buy the ticket. So you don't have to worry about bad sight angles, obstructive views, all that. That is taken out the window and taken care of with their seat viewfinder. So that way you know what you're going to be seeing when you get to the actual event. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, at the end of segment 2, we are now going to go into the overall grade of the Hurricanes for their midsummer offseason grading period. So as of July 19th, we're still a little bit of ways away from training camp starting in September and all that. So I consider somewhat the halfway point if you really want to look at it that way in terms of the offseason for the Hurricanes. So far this episode, we went over the guys who, the Hurricanes brought in through free agency as unrestricted free agents, or, guys they've re-signed, Jack Drury, Jalen Chatfield, stuff like that, guys that, came back on a re-sign. Jenkins Slave's extension is really great. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer for that one. We did talk about the departures, guys like Timo Teravainen, Brett Pesce, Brady Shea, stuff like that, all of them leaving as well. So, kind of tough to see how that works out. The draft, I think the Hurricanes did really good in the draft. You really can't, for me personally, I don't think you really can grade a draft because you know how these guys are going to be 3-4 seasons down the road, unless they're like a Connor Bedard and they're ready to go right now. I don't think you're going to see any of the guys who got drafted going to make the NHL this year. So I don't really view a draft as something to grade necessarily. You can see they did a good job, or kind of surprising with some picks that happened, but overall, you really don't know what's going to happen then until later down the road. So I'm not really going to put the draft as part of the grading process. The grading process basically is like, the guys that you brought in, the guys who left, guys you possibly re-signed and stuff like that, and and what you still have to do for the rest of the offseason. So we already talked about the additions. You got your Shane Gostisbehere, Sean Walker. I think your two biggest guys that you added to the roster, kind of helped shore up your defense. You got a lot of depth pieces in Tyson Jost, Eric Robinson, Riley Stillman, Josiah Slavin, Joakim Ryan, stuff like that. So those are your kind of your depth pieces. You did re-sign Ryan Suzuki. Maybe you can figure out how that works out for him. You did re-sign Ty Smith, who I think is going to be your 7th defenseman for the Hurricanes. Overall, and you did get Jack Roslovic, who's kind of fits that right shot center that you need. You don't know where you're gonna put him in the roster and stuff like that. So I really like the fact they brought Jack Drury back, and I think you're gonna see a little bit more time on ice for him, and hopefully you get the more production that he can produce out there. So overall, I think the additions were great for the Hurricanes. And then you look at your departures. Yeah, you lost a lot of guys, like big names that you really like. The fans really liked. Pesce, Shea, Turbo, stuff like that. So it stinks to see all them go. You didn't really want to lose a top 6 guy. You really didn't want to lose your whole second defensive pair, but you did get that replacement in Walker and Gostisbehere. You did bring in one Carrier who does kind of replace Steph Nason. I'm curious to see who they're going to bring in for the top 6 to cover for Tara Vinen. That'll be very interesting to see how that works out. I think too, with you're still looking at the guys who are your RFAs that still need to get signed, Martin Nietzsche and Seth Jarvis. Technically, they have until December 1st to get signed. I don't think the Hurricanes are going to take that long to get done, but as of July 19th, these still aren't signed yet. I know Martin Nietzsche is filed for arbitration. Let's see if that goes there as well. I know that Eric Tulsky's talked about wanting to give Seth Jarvis an 8-year contract. We'll see if that actually happens. It could be a bridge. It could be a 5-year deal that I've predicted. Who really knows? I'm really curious to see, too, of how much money it's going to be. Because, like I said, you got $13.8 million left in cap space. Are you just going to use all of it for those two guys? Or do you possibly make a trade also as well and bring in another top 6 guy to help shore up the offense? Because right now, the defense got taken care of. I think the defense is really, really good for your top 6. And you got Ty Smith as your 7th. Forward core, I definitely think you took some hits in Teuvo Teravainen going, Jake Gensel leaving. Gay Kuznetsov is now gone too. So it's kind of like, okay, what's really next for the Hurricanes or who they're going to bring in to help out with that. So all that saying, I think the Carolina Hurricanes, if I had to give them a grade right now on July 19th, I give them a B+. I would say if they picked up another top 6 guy already, or if they already re-signed either Seth Jarvis or Martin Nietzsche, I would give them an A- already. But for the fact that those two guys are still technically not under contract, the forward core, I still think does need some more help overall. It's not terrible, but I definitely think you kind of need a boost in your top 6. Your defense is really good. You shored up that. You brought Ghost, you brought Walker in. I think those are really good replacements. Goaltending didn't really need any work. So, yeah, I think right now a B+ is really good for the Hurricanes. Despite the departures of, guys that fans really liked, I think you did get some solid replacements back. Like I said, top 6, I think it's kind of where it's kind of lacking right now, but I do think that Eric Tulsky might have something up his sleeve. So, like I said, I would give them the A- if one of their RFAs, the other RFAs outside of Jack Drury was signed. So, if you had Jarvis or Nietzsche already taken care of, I think that's your A- grade. But overall, I still give them a B+. I still think it's a good mid-season grade, midsummer, mid-off-season grade to give their Carolina Hurricanes right now. Still isn't terrible. You got your additions that you need. Still some things you got to work on. Guys you need to re-sign as well. So I think it's a solid grade overall. So let me know in the comments what you think. Do you give them a B+ as well? Do you give them that A? Do you give them a lower B? So let me know in the comments. How would you grade the Hurricanes so far at their midsummer point of the grading season? So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with my B+, or do you think you give them something else? So I don't know. That's kind of where I stand right now. I think that overall they've had a pretty good offseason up to this point at the midsummer way. So I'm curious to see what my grade will be when we get closer to the actual regular season and in camps and stuff like that. But if you want to keep up with me, you can follow me at OneTrueZach on X. You can follow the podcast at LO_Hurricanes. If you're on X, or if you can find a way to go to my link tree, you can find where to read all my articles at the Hockey Writers. You can also check out my other podcast, the Surgecast. There's links to where to listen and watch on that side of things. And for this podcast, there is a link to where you can listen to the show on all podcast platforms and also check it out on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification. Make sure you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know if you liked the show as well. Make sure to share it so that way other Keniacs just become everydayers just like you. We are over 900 subscribers, so we are on the road to 1,000. And if we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Friday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Friday. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And until next week when we figure out what to talk about next for the Carolina Hurricanes, I hope everyone's a great weekend. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.